Hello fellow storytellers, this is Mark Graham with the Source of Story YouTube channel and Runes for Writers. Welcome back. In this video we're going to continue our exploration of the runes with the second half of the first 8 or row of the runes. And our first rune today is going to be Raidho. Now Raidho literally means ride. This can be in the notion of riding a horse, of being actually mounted on the animal. Or more commonly, it's seen as riding a draft vehicle, a wagon being pulled by a horse or an ox or what have you. The notion of this, and if you look at the figure of the rune, you can kind of make out the hindquarters, say, of a horse, just stepping off and ready to set on to the path. So the notion behind this is twofold. So if you're trying to go from point A to point B, if you're on foot, you can try for a straight shot and head across country. If you're on a horse, you have similar flexibility, but not quite as much. If you're going through dense woods, for example, being on horseback could be a challenge. If you're riding a wagon, then you've got some real challenges in taking any route you want. So in that case, you're likely to stick to a cart path, a road, a way that people have gone before. And that's really important to this rune, to the interpretation of this rune, because there's a reliance on a collective consciousness, on past knowledge, experience, those who have gone this way before. You know, roads don't always make sense sometimes in their meanderings, but when you look at them, you know, they're avoiding property lines, they're avoiding impassable or very difficult, challenging terrain. So while you may be going several miles out of your way on a particular path, you're actually making better time than you would if it were a straight shot, because of those headaches, those obstacles, those terrain challenges. And that's the underlying feel or strength of this rune, of Raidho. Now, interestingly, the Indo-European root word associated with Raidho is Rita, R-T-A. And this is the same root from which we get our words right, as in the right way to go, as in right hand, writing with a pen on paper, and rite as in ritual. All of these words stem from this root word, Rita, and so they share a common basis with the notion of Raidho, and these are all built into that. So when we look at Raidho, we have a sense of being on the right path. You're riding on the appropriate path to take you from point A to point B. You're looking at right doing. You're looking at doing things in the right manner, in the right way. And you're also looking at ritual, which at its core, if you look at ritual, religious ritual, proper habits, things of that nature, these are all associated with doing the right thing in the right way. So when we see Raidho come up in a rune casting, these are the notions that we could take with that. That either this is being done or this needs to be done, depending on the context of the card, of the rune in the rune casting. So we get the notion of things being done properly, of orderliness, of the proper steps being taken, of being on the right path. You know, you're following your life purpose. You're doing the thing that is right for you. We're not looking at global moralistic judgments for this character in this situation. When Raidho comes up, that is the right thing being done. Conversely, if it is reversed, we have a notion of being on the wrong path or not staying on the path. We have ideas of shortcuts being taken, of corners being cut. We have this notion of wrongdoing. So it's the opposite. Now these, they may be expedient, they may be profitable, but ultimately, Raidho reversed suggests that things are not being done in the right manner, in the proper manner, or that the correct path is not being taken. So that is the 5th rune, Raidho, and our next rune is Kenaj. Now Kenaj literally means torch, and in the shape of this rune, you can kind of see a torch being stuck into the ground or into a holder and casting its own shadow. It is illuminating itself and also hiding itself, if you will. And it's this notion of light and shadow that helps us with the interpretation of Kenaj. You can find similarities. Again, we'll look at the linguistics and the etymology. And there are similarities in this word with know, with to know something, and with the word can I do this? It's interesting in that etymology, many times we'll misappropriate the word can and or may. May I do something versus can I do this? And often we'll correct someone if they say can I? Well, I don't know, can you? You may if you like. But if you really look into the depths of this word, can may actually be correct. Can I do something? It has a threefold meaning. Am I physically capable of doing this? Do I have the right, the moral authority to do this? And do I have the mental capacity to do this? Do I know, do I ken how to do this thing? And it's all three of these aspects that really come into play when we look at the rune Kenaj. So when this comes up in a rune casting, we have the idea of knowledge, of knowing how to do something. We have an idea of understanding, of creativity, of skill, of all these things combining to suggest that the person can do the thing at hand. And reversed is obviously the other side of that coin. It suggests inability. It suggests ignorance. It may suggest confusion, where perhaps there's knowledge but not the authority, not the ability, or physical ability, but conversely not the skill or the knowledge to do something. So it's one or more of this three-legged stool of knowledge, of physical ability, and of moral agency. At least one of those things is missing and out of place. And so trying to effect whatever this situation, these circumstances are, is not going to go well. So that is Kenaj, the 6th rune on the first 8, standing for knowledge. And the next rune up is Gebo. And this is a really interesting rune and a special rune, particularly when you take it into the context of the ancient Norse people, of their traditions and habits and what have you. So Gebo means gift. And as I first began looking into these and trying to find my own mnemonics and to try to understand and memorize the runes, what they mean and so forth, it's like, well, it's an X. How does this stand for a gift? And as I studied it and really dug into it, it sort of dawned on me, when you are meeting someone whom you've been anticipating this welcome, or it's someone that you haven't seen for a long time, rather than simply shaking hands, you're clasping both of their hands in yours, and those clasped hands in the forearms form this cross, this X. And that is the notion of Gebo. Hospitality was hugely important, was of great importance among the ancient Norse. The rules of hospitality were not simply courtesy, they were necessary for survival among the ancients. So you have this notion of hospitality, of welcome. And part of those rules of hospitality were if you brought a stranger into your home, both host and guest were under an unwritten contract and an understanding of mutual action toward one another, mutual means of conduct. For example, if a stranger came into your home, the host was obligated to feed, to shelter, to give drink and warmth to the stranger or to the guest. If the guest made a comment, that's a beautiful bowl, the host would be required to, here you go, would you like to have it? Thank you for the compliment. It's yours if you want it. So that notion of gift, of giving and receiving is innate to this Gebo rune, the idea of generosity. Inherent in this is also the requirement upon the guest to be a good and proper guest, not to start a fight, not to create trouble or to bring trouble upon the host. So there's a balance here between needing shelter and providing something in return, or at least not causing harm while you're under your host's roof. That equal exchange of energy, both of courtesy, of welcoming, and of peace and goodwill, which were often in short supply among the ancients. And that is Gebo. Now, this is the first rune that we've encountered so far that has no reverse. If you look at this rune, it's the same right side up or upside down. You can't really tell, except obviously for a few nuances in the way it's drawn in the background. But the rune itself, the ideal shape of the rune, is irreversible. So when this rune shows up in your rune casting, it has the notion of a universal law, a universal principle that cannot be violated. So when we see this, yes, we think of this generosity and this goodwill. This is a very benefic rune in that it's all good things and it cannot be reversed or taken away. So this is a really powerful rune in fiction writing, particularly in thrillers or action stories, suspense novels, things of that nature. It can kind of be boring because there's not, there's not a villainous, a negative side to this rune. But within the context of where it shows up in the story, of where it shows up in the rune casting, of its relation to other runes, in its position to how it wants to show up in the story, there are obviously some ways to take this into account. I think it has shown up in a couple of my sample rune castings, so there are examples of how you treat this rune and in the nature of it and how it can impact your story. So that is Gebo. That is rune number 7 of the first 8 of the Elder Futhark. And the next rune is Wunjo. Now Wunjo is the W sound. Its literal meaning is joy. And this, as with Gebo, when this rune shows up upright, it signifies really good things. So the shape of this rune, if you look at it, it sort of looks like a pennant, a flag. And we can think of this as the clan or the tribal banner that they would fly over their camp to, both as a guidepost, so people can find their way to the camp. If it will rise above the hills or above the tree line, so people can spot it more easily. it's that identification, and it also signifies which tribe this is. So if it's a hostile tribe, then you'll know to stay away. If it's a friendly tribe, whether your home clan or someone allied with you, then you'll know that you can find shelter and welcome and warmth there. So that identification is important. And we can think of this as within the context of our hunter-gatherer or our more nomadic society, or in later days, as you had men going out to sea, men and women in different cases, going to sea and then coming home after a long journey, that or from a long hunt or what have you. As you near your homeland and you see that banner, perhaps it's the wind is low or it's in the wrong direction, so you see that there is a banner, but you can't quite make it out yet, and then the wind changes, the wind picks up and snaps that banner full on, and you see that is your tribe, that is your clan. That is the joy that Wunjo speaks of here. So we get in this beyond just the joy of I've finally come home. There's a sense of achievement in that I have gone out, I have done what I intended to do, or possibly I failed, but I've made it home. And whether or not I achieved the objective of this journey, I have achieved a homecoming. And frankly, most times among the ancients, if they did not achieve the physical object, if they went out on a hunt and did not have anything to bring back, they weren't coming back, at least not yet. On a journey of exploration or of a raid, I believe a similar mindset held sway, in that if they were not successful or they didn't have something to bring back, they died trying, or they simply didn't come back. So we have that sense of achievement, of completion. And in the hero's journey cycle, which we looked at in the 9 worlds rune casting, this is a very important role, and this position where this rune wants to be specifically stands for this completion of the journey. That you have gone out into the extraordinary world, you've faced your demons, you have achieved the boon or not, but you have returned changed with the boon or with a healing for either the character or the tribe of the village. So we have in this that joy, that sense of the homecoming, a completed journey, a sense of achievement, a job well done, and just the joy that comes from this. Reversed, it's going to be the opposite of these things. This can be opposite of joy, could be depression, or at least sorrow. This can be a sense of neglect, in that someone is not doing what they ought to be. They are not fulfilling their duties and their obligations. This could be a sense of perhaps ingratitude, where you have gone out and you have, or the character has done this task. They have achieved the goal and they have brought it home. They get there and the tribe's like, meh, thanks, I guess, I don't know. So that sense of pride on the individual's part, but when it comes to the return, their gift, their objective is unappreciated. There's no joy when they come home. It could be an inability to return to the home, to the camp, to the tribe. This may be, we could see in the Lord of the Rings series, or more specifically in The Hobbit. You have the sense of what happened between The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. And Bilbo has a certain madness that I'm not an expert on the stories. I'm extrapolating a bit from what I recall. So please comment and correct me if I'm mistaken. But I get the sense in the rune, or in the ring cycle, that Bilbo has gone out and he's held on to this treasure all this time. He's not been willing to share it or to allow the village, the Shire, to benefit from his journey. So it's a tragic hero's journey in that he's returned home changed, not necessarily for the better, but also not willing or unable to allow the community to benefit from his change. Maybe there is no benefit, and that's part of the challenge and the tragedy of this story. And that is the sense of Wunjo reversed. He's come home, but he really hasn't. There's no joy in that homecoming. There's no upliftment, no fulfillment for himself or the Shire in that return. It's, he's maybe come full circle, but it's at that same level. He's not spiraled upward. He hasn't come on that higher plane, that higher dimension in the return. So things are much like they were before, perhaps even on a lower level than they were before. So Wunjo reversed is perhaps one of the most tragic runes, because this should be great joy, great achievement, but instead it's a loss, it's sorrow, it's neglect, it's this ungratefulness that faces the hero on the return. That is the tragedy of Wunjo reversed. And so that is our 8th rune, the last of the first 8, and that will be it for this particular video. I hope you are enjoying this series. Please comment below and give me your thoughts. Let me know you're out there. If you're enjoying this, I would ask that you please like, subscribe, share this video series and the channel itself. And if you are enjoying what we're doing with the Runes for Writers, I would encourage you to like and subscribe to the Runes for Writers page. Subscribe to mark-graham.com so that I can keep you up to date on my newsletters. And subscribe. And if you are really behind this and want to see more and more people exposed to this and have the opportunity to make use of this Runes for Writers system, please go to our Indiegogo campaign and take a look at what we're offering there and support us. Give us your support. This is not a charity. I'm not looking for a handout. This will get into your hands a number of products or options of our products, including the rune cards, the rune tiles, the dice, which we'll be getting into a bit more deeply here as we go, and which I'm developing some really exciting new rune castings and interpretations that have recently kind of cropped up for me. So I'm really excited to share those with you. We have all of those available. I am developing a full-on book that will go into much more detail than I'm able to do in just these short little videos and in the handouts that are able to accompany the cards and the runes, or the tiles and the dice. So please go take a look. We've got 9 actually different levels of support that you are able to engage in, each of which comes with something. I appreciate goodwill and charity as much as the next person, but all of these come with something of value to you that you can use for your own purposes, for your storytelling, in your own rune castings. So do take a look, please. And if you are willing to support me in this endeavor, I would definitely appreciate that. So once more, I am Mark Graham with the Source of Story YouTube channel and the Runes for Writers. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to hearing about your story with the runes.